Hey everybody, it's Miss Springle again, and we are back for another day of shared reading. Today we've got a really quick close read where we're going to take a look at the text features in an article we read a while ago called Marco Polo China Trader, and an article we've talked about a lot lately, the Silk Road, yesterday and today. Take a look at our close read question on the left. How does the author use a variety of graphic features to support the author's ideas presented in the Silk Road yesterday and today and Marco Polo China Trader? Well, some graphic features that I saw in both articles were a timeline. So as I take a look at this top timeline, I know that the article says Silk Road timeline. So it's all about important events on the Silk Road. We see that in 130 BCE, trade officially started there. In 618, the Silk Road reached its peak during the Tang Dynasty. Way later in the 1200s and 1300s, the Mongols ruled Central Asia and China, and they revived trade along the Silk Road. So they really brought back the Silk Road once again, which led to in 1271, Marco Polo began his 4-year journey from Venice to China. Then finally, in the 1500s, they discovered sea routes to the west that make shipping more popular than the overland routes like the Silk Road. All right, so some interesting information, but now let's take a look at the timeline of Marco Polo's travels and see if any of this information is similar to what we saw in the first timeline. Okay, 1254, Marco Polo was born. Cool, but I didn't really see any of that in this first timeline. 1271, Marco Polo begins his journey to China, and in 1274, Marco Polo arrives at Kublai Khan's court, which I know was in China. So when I think about it, in this first timeline, they told us in 1271 that Marco Polo began his 4-year journey from Venice to China, and that same event is reflected in this timeline. In 1271, Marco Polo began his journey to China, and in 1274, 4 years later, he arrived there. So I'm seeing this similar idea, and the author used these timelines to really show the readers that Marco Polo had a long travel route on the Silk Road. All of these graphic features show where his journey began. They began in Italy or Venice, and he traveled to China. Now, these authors decided to use timelines. I'm wondering, if you had a chance, what kind of text feature would you include in these articles? If it were me, I might include something like a bar graph that shows how trade along the Silk Road changed over time. It might start really high and then get low during this time period. And then once again in the 1200s, it would probably get high again. But just an idea that I had. Today for shared reading, you don't have any kind of response. Thanks for listening. As we get reading tomorrow, we're going to move on to a whole new article, and I can't wait. Thanks for watching, 6th graders.